think we are today at a very similar inflection point. In 2023, consumers spent $184 billion on low-carbon consumer technologies, EVs, heat pumps, batteries, rooftop solar. That's a big number. But you know what's really big? They outspent governments by 2 times. It shows how the power of change in our industry is changing. It doesn't need big decision-making to decide where to build a big power plant. We are doing, you guys are enabling that. In Norway, recently, 94% of the new cars sold were pure electric. Now you're going to say, small country, rich, cheap electricity. All of that is right. But you know what? China, 40% of the cars sold last month were pure electric. And it's the same trend. You can buy an EV in China for less than $10,000. Australia, 40% of roofs have rooftop solar. And these aren't, I mean, if you look carefully, this is actually a real street from Australia. They're massive. You probably have a megawatt of installed capacity in that photo. Major change in the way the system runs. Last month, half the rooftop solar installations in California had a battery attached. Resilience, independence, increased reliability. We couldn't have had this conversation a few years ago. And I think we're just at that inflection point where things are starting to change. And if you believe Bloomberg, which I do, there's going to be 200 million of these. But I'm going to caveat that. They've got it wrong. There's going to be a lot more. And even the brightest, every time they forecast how much solar we're going to have, how much wind we're going to have, how many cars, they get it wrong. They underestimate it. In 1980, a set of German utilities took a full-page ad in a broadsheet and said, we believe that energies from hydro, solar, and wind will plateau at 4% of the generation mix. Germany last year exceeded 50% renewables. Another one, amazing group of Norwegian academics in 2017 got together and wrote an analysis of renewable energy and said, in the next decade, solar and wind will plateau at 1.7 terawatts. Last year, we exceeded 2 terawatts, and we're adding 500 gigawatts every year. All good news. Sometimes predictions going wrong is a good thing. And a lot of you are causing this change. There is this incredible proliferation of incredible new technologies that consumers want to have. That's driving that. But that comes with a tax. This was the load profile on the grid ever since Tesla and Edison invented the modern grid. Low overnight, as we woke up, industry came online, it went and plateaued, and in the evening, we went home and created a little peak. It was the same, it went up a little over time, recently it came down, but roughly that was the shape. Then we added that rooftop solar, like in Australia and California, and created that dip in the middle of the day, which I think Californians coined the term the duck curve. That rapid rise from the new low in the middle of the day to the evening peak. During a time when we were decommissioning gas, which would have been what we'd switch on to catch up with load. We're electrifying heating and cooling. We create that little camel's humps in the morning when we wake up and we go home in the evening, making that massive rise from the duck curve even more higher and harder to meet. And we're just starting to electrify transportation and building that massive giraffe's neck on top of the existing peak and the other load from heating or cooling. This becomes an unmanageable problem. There isn't enough money or engineering to build the grid to carry this kind of a load profile. So we have to start doing things a little differently. But we think consumer devices is actually the solution because they're intelligent and there are ways of connecting to them. But today, only 5% of eligible consumer devices participate in supporting the grid. There's something seriously wrong with that, and I was talking with Arshad, who will be on stage later on, and he said, you're optimistic, it's probably more like 1%. That's a massive opportunity loss. And our duty as this group is to flip that chart around and make consumer flexibility, the thing, not something that we do on the side because we're geeky or early adopters. To be able to do that, we have to fix this communication problem. How do we talk to devices? What can or cannot they do? How do they behave to support the grid in a meaningful way? Now, those of you from the UK know what this is. Everybody knows what this is. We love this. It's an incredible socket structure. It's solid. Whatever you plug in stays in. It's earthed. It's brilliant. Unless you're Alexander, who came from Belgium today and forgot his adapter. Because I have a massive collection of these. Now, it's a small thing, not a massive nuisance, but it's an opportunity missed to have created a single way of plugging things into the wall. It would have been simpler. These guys, however, figured it out extremely well. Who doesn't know what this logo is? Good, because you probably all have something in your person right now that has that logo. Do you know what the name was? I've researched this a little bit. It's quite interesting. It was named after a Swedish king, Harald Bluetooth Gromson, who apparently brought the Danish and Norwegian Viking clans together through communication to unify them. So he's a communicator. That was the inspiration. And it's not a surprise because Ericsson was the institution where Bluetooth was born or instigated. And this chap, his name I'm going to quickly look, Jaap Hartsen, in 1994, was commissioned to say, go and figure this out. Design a standard where devices can talk to each other. And it was the gentleman on the left, Niels Rybeck, who had started it. And by 1998, they had recruited IBM, Intel, Toshiba, and Nokia to work along with them to create the first version of Bluetooth. Now, I tried using Bluetooth then. It was crap. I would spend hours trying to get anything on my mobile to the laptop and back. But if we had stopped at that point, we would have failed. We would not have gotten to where we are today. Today, this day, there'll be 10 million devices sold in the world with a Bluetooth logo on it. Those devices will be able to communicate with each other without worrying about what the make or model is on the other side. It's got 32,000 members across industries. They simply make things work or make things make good sound. It allows manufacturers to focus on what they're really good at. And when you manufacture things that are good and work, it creates happier customers. And that's been one of our challenges, to build that trust and enjoyment factor that from the grid. That's why Mercury. We chose a similar story. We named it into it, thieves and all that, but we're not going to talk about that part. One side for this, manufacturers, the supply side, technology providers, and regulators and associations coming together to do a number of very discrete things. We're going to develop a certification methodology. So devices that pass the Mercury test will get the Mercury logo exactly like Bluetooth. To be able to reach that, we're going to develop a set of technical guidelines to define two things. What should a hardware, a battery, a heat pump, an EV charger, inverter be able to do, and how quickly to support what the grid or a utility or a trader or an aggregator needs it to do. And then we're going to look at what is the right way to communicate with that device to exploit those functional capabilities to achieve the value for the whole system, because consumer flexibility is the cheapest form of flexibility we can create. What we will not do, and I got this question asked many times, we're not going to go and write standards. There are many standards out there that perform a lot of what we need. But what we will do is probably put some guidelines and say, if you are implementing OCPP, we like you to implement it in this way, and these are the tests that you need to pass. So that way, we're taking the existing infrastructure and making sure it works to the standards that the utilities want it to do. And believe it or not, we've started this 8 weeks ago. Those of you who may know Greg Jackson knows that he has a following. And he decided 8 weeks ago at an event in Berlin to get on stage and announce. And I was terrified because I didn't know what was going to come. But you guys all came. And it's been an incredible journey. Our founding members today include, and I'm not going to go one by one, many of you are here in the room, these utilities. And we're careful to cover geographic presence, so North America, Europe, Asia Pacific. Functional as well, integrated utilities, retailers, network operators, to cover the full spectrum. Then we said to manufacturers from EV charging, heat pumps, batteries, inverters, come. And there are a few more that are actually in the process of joining this. Then Kraken, this is not Kraken. We just instigated this to bring everyone together. So we brought others along with us. Oracle, for supporting us and making this such a success, will become the manager of this process, and we'll probably have other associations join as well. So to close it off, it took 13 years for New York to get rid of horse carts. We together here have an incredible opportunity to lay the foundation, to build streets full of electric vehicles, to have homes that don't create a problem for the grid, support it, creating an overall value and sharing with those with your consumers. So once again, thank you for coming to Manchester.